Greg Abbott insults Karoline Leavitt, stay out of Texas. But her response shocks all of America. The hallway buzzes with post-town hall chatter press, mics retracting, handshakes fading, aides whispering logistics. But amid the shuffle, one sentence slices the air. Greg Abbott, voice low but caught on a hot mic, mutters to his aide without breaking stride. Karoline should stay out of Texas politics. The aide doesn't flinch, he's heard worse, but the mic hears everything. Within minutes, it hits the feed. The moderator at the local news panel stiffens as she receives the update in her earpiece. She turns, composed but curious. Moderator, Karoline Leavitt. Governor Abbott was just recorded saying, and, I quote, Karoline should stay out of Texas politics. Your response? Karoline doesn't blink. She folds her hands gently, then speaks with a precision honed by fire. Karoline, I wasn't aware state lines could block truth. She glances across the panel, one raised eyebrow, one faint smirk. Karoline continued, or has it become policy now to silence outsiders when the truth gets uncomfortable? The panel erupts not in chaos, but in subtle, sharp movements. A Democratic strategist leans forward. Strategist, that's a bold claim. You're suggesting the governor is afraid of outside scrutiny. Karoline, no. She turns slightly. I'm saying he should be. Another panelist, a longtime Texas conservative, clears his throat. Conservative panelist, you have no jurisdiction here. You're not an elected official in this state. Karoline, that's true. But the Constitution wasn't drawn with invisible fences. If what I say rattles someone, maybe it's not my location that's the problem. Younger journalist cuts in. Journalist, do you think this was just a careless comment or something intentional? Karoline softens. Just enough. Karoline, intentional or not, it tells you everything. Power doesn't like a mirror held to its face. And Abbott just told us whose reflection he's avoiding. Someone from the production booth whispers, we're trending. Phones buzz. Live chat scrolls, faster than the eye can read. One phrase stands out repeatedly. Truth doesn't need a state permit. The moderator wraps up, voice firm. Moderator, well, Karoline Leavitt's response is making waves tonight. Let's see where this goes. Karoline nods once. Her hands are still folded, but her words, those are already marching across borders. Before we continue this confrontation, let us know where you're watching from, and subscribe if you believe truth shouldn't have borders. The sun hasn't fully crested over Austin when the airwaves begin to hum. You're listening to Lone Star Mornings with Buck Riley. It's 6:03, and let me tell you, Texas is fired up. Buck Riley's voice cuts through radios in cars, diners, and garages across the state. The show wastes no time. Buck Riley on air. If you're just tuning in, here's what's got. The Hornets nest angry. Governor Abbott, hot mic moment, told his aide, quote, Karoline should stay out of Texas politics. That was yesterday. Last night, Karoline Leavitt fired back. Her words, I wasn't aware state lines could block truth. Boom. He chuckles, but it's forced. Buck continued. Now folks, we're gonna take your calls. Is she out of line, or did the governor step in it? Let's hear it. The lines flood instantly. Buck points to his producer, first caller, caller, one mic from Lubbock. I don't want outsiders stirring our pot. We got our own issues. We don't need some New Hampshire firebrand telling us how to run Texas. Buck, fair. You think? Abbott should have said it louder. Mike, I think he was too soft. She's a media climber. That's it. Buck, all right. Strong take from Lubbock. Another line lights up. Buck clicks it on. Caller to Janine from Houston. I don't agree with Karoline politically, but that comeback, that was sharp, and she didn't yell. She just told the truth. Buck, so you're okay with her speaking up? Janine, I'm okay with someone challenging power without asking for permission. Texas used to stand for that. Buck raises his eyebrows off air. Buck to producer. Whispered, get me a curveball. Let's stir this. Another line. Caller 3, Raymond from Amarillo, Army vet. You know what? I fought overseas, and I didn't do it so governors could muzzle voices they don't like. Buck leans in. Buck, you support Karoline. Raymond didn't say that. Don't agree with half her stuff, but I'll be damned if I let my governor act like he owns free speech. Buck, that's a quote. Raymond, appreciate your service. And then it happens. The studio's producer, Did scribbles something on a notepad and slides it under Buck's mic. Line 7. Karoline Leavitt. Buck hesitates. Buck on air. All right, we've got a surprise guest. Line 7. Karoline Leavitt. You're live on Lone Star Mornings. There's a second of silence. Then, her voice. Karoline on air. Good morning. Buck. I figured it was time I spoke directly to the folks I apparently should stay away from. Buck. Well, you've got the floor. Ma'am. Karoline. Governor Abbott said I shouldn't speak on Texas politics. I didn't know truth was a local ordinance. Buck smirks but stays quiet. Karoline continued. I've never claimed to be Texan, but I've studied your schools, your infrastructure reports, your veterans care programs. If I threaten Texas just by speaking facts, then maybe the facts are what need defending. The phone lines explode again. Buck. Ma'am, that's gonna rattle some boots. Karoline. I'm not here to rattle. I'm here because people emailed me Texans who feel unheard in their own backyard. Buck, and you think you're their voice. Karoline, no, I think I'm one of many who refuse to pretend silence is respect. A pause. Buck, stay on the line, will you? Karoline, happy to. Buck switches back to callers. Caller for Angela from San Antonio. She's not wrong. I've written to Abbott's office 5 times about special needs funding. No reply. Maybe it takes someone from the outside to finally say something loud enough. Buck, so Karoline's the megaphone. Angela, no, she's the feedback. Laughter bursts across Buck's team. Karoline stays quiet. Caller 5, Derek from Waco. I still don't trust her. She's building a brand, not a movement. Karoline interrupting. Derek, I respect that view. But you know what I don't respect? Elected officials who mock others behind closed doors and then call it leadership. Buck, direct shot there. Karoline, I've worked under pressure. I've been told to smile more, speak less, and stay quiet. That ends here. Another ping. Buck's eyes widen. Another guest on hold. Buck to Karoline, you're not going to believe this. Line 3 State Representative Luis Mendoza, Democrat. He says he's got something to say. Click. Mendoza on air. Karoline, I've never shared a stage with you, never voted with your party. But I'll tell you what I don't want my constituents silenced, no matter where the voice comes from. Karoline, I appreciate that. Representative Mendoza, don't agree with your politics. But Abbott crossed a line. And sometimes, when truth gets loud, even folks from outside help us hear it clearer. Buck, this is one heck of a morning, folks. Karoline, I'll leave you with this. Truth has no zip code. And if mine's bothering those in power, it means it's hitting the right nerve. The call ends. Buck leans back. EXHALING. Buck to listeners. You just heard it. Live, raw, and unfiltered. Whether you love her or loathe her, Karoline Leavitt didn't flinch. He pauses. Buck, Texas. What now? It drops at 6:45 a.m. A single headline floods inboxes, social media feeds, and news segments before breakfast. Eve begins. I will not stay silent for state lines. A letter from Karoline Leavitt. Letter is not long, but it slices deep. Karoline reading. Recorded voiceover. This is not about politics. It's about dignity. And no governor, no matter how powerful, has the right to decide who gets to speak where. She pauses, then continues. Since my response aired, I've received thousands of messages from Texans. I want to share just a few, not because they agree with me, but because they remind me that silence, no matter where it comes from, is a choice, and I choose not to make it. The first quote scrolls slowly across the screen. I'm not red or blue, I'm tired. And you said what I've been whispering for years. Middle school teacher, El Paso. Karoline breathes in and reads the next. I raised 4 boys in Texas, all veterans. One of them took his own life last year because no one at the VA would listen. I don't care where you're from, you for saying something. Mother, Fort Worth. Her voice nearly falters on the third. Governor Abbott has never stepped foot in our school. You quoting our district report was the first time someone gave us dignity on a national stage. Superintendent, Travis County. And then one final entry. No name. I didn't know I was allowed to feel angry until I heard your voice. Anonymous. Somewhere in Texas. Karoline ends the video by looking directly into the camera. Karoline, the governor asked me to stay out of Texas. I ask him, why are so many Texans asking me to stay in? By 9 a.m., the press room at the Capitol is standing room only. Governor Abbott is not present. Instead, his press secretary, Dean Granger, takes the podium, tight-lipped, suited, and spinning. Granger, let's be clear, the governor welcomes all voices, especially when they're respectful and constructive. But out-of-state provocateurs. Reporter 1 interrupting, are you suggesting Karoline Leavitt isn't being constructive? Granger, I'm saying political grandstanding is not a solution. Reporter 2, have you read the letter? Granger, I've been briefed on it. Reporter 3 firm, one of the quotes in her letter is from a Texas veteran's mother who lost her son. Are you calling her letter grandstanding too? Granger stumbles. Granger, we empathize with every Texan who's faced hardship. The governor's focus remains on local solutions. Reporter 1 cutting in, is the governor saying truth has a zip code? There's a pause. Too long. Granger adjusts his mic. Granger, no, of course not, but we believe in Texas solutions. For Texas problems. Reporter 4, so why silence someone who's amplifying them? Granger sighs. Granger, we're not silencing anyone. A hand shoots up in the back. Reporter 5 calmly, then why hasn't the governor addressed her directly? The press secretary's response is swift but empty. Granger, we don't respond to media bait. It's the wrong move. Across the country, journalists tweet the clip. One anchors a segment around it titled, When Public Pressure Gets Called Bait. That afternoon, Karoline walks calmly into a scheduled event originally intended for education reform, but every camera is already pointed at her. She greets the moderator quietly, then takes the mic, eyes direct. Karoline, this morning, I released a letter. not to shame anyone, not to escalate, but because truth belongs to no one, and silence helps no one. She nods toward the reporters, many of whom are still holding copies of her letter. Karoline, if amplifying the words of your own citizens makes me an outsider, then perhaps the real problem isn't where I'm from. A journalist speaks up. Journalist, Governor Abbott's team just accused you of political grandstanding. Your response. Karoline, a grieving mother's plea is not theater. A teacher's exhaustion is not a performance. In veterans, stories don't exist for convenience. They exist because someone failed to listen. Another voice from the press corps. Journalist 2. Would you meet with the governor if he offered? Karoline, I'm not here for optics. I'll meet him if he wants to talk about people, not headlines. She starts to leave, but turns back. Karoline. And one more thing, if leadership means shutting the door on voices you don't like, then maybe leadership needs redefining. That clip runs on every major outlet before the end of the day. CNN overlays it with the headline, Karoline strikes again. Truth has no zip code. Fox News runs a split screen, Abbott's silence on one side, Karoline reading a mother's letter on the other. Online. The conversation fractures. Some call her brave, some call her manipulative, but no one calls her quiet. And that, perhaps, is the loudest shift of all. The marble steps of the U.S. Capitol glisten under a washed-out noon sun. Reporters shift their weight, arms raised, mics extended, cameras locked toward the eastern entrance. Inside, a national education funding vote ticks into its final count. Tension is high, but most eyes aren't on the Senate. They're waiting for a different kind of showdown. Governor Greg Abbott exits first, flanked by aides and security. Flashes go off instantly. Reporter, Governor, will you address the open letter? Abbott offers a closed-mouth smile but says nothing. Then the crowd splits, attention tilting left. Karoline Leavitt walks down the opposite side of the steps. She carries no notes, no entourage, just steady steps and unshakable focus. They see each other. Abbott slows, just enough to show recognition, but not enough to stop. Cameras pivot, capturing it from both angles. Abbott tight smile. Back in town, I see. Karoline without flinching, I never left the truth. The moment freezes mid-steps, mid-breaths. Abbott chuckles once. It doesn't reach his eyes. Abbott, you've had your moment. Karoline, the real work happens in rooms like that. He nods subtly to the Senate behind them. Karoline, then it's a shame so much silence echoes out of those rooms. A few reporters gasped quietly. One clicks his pen. A CSPAN intern whispers into a comms mic. Abbott measured. Texas doesn't need lectures from politicians looking for spotlight. Karoline, lowering her voice, but not backing down. And Texans don't need their pain filtered through pride. Neither of them moves. A security agent coughs discreetly, trying to break the freeze. Then Abbott speaks again, this time more sharply. Abbott, you're not from here. Karoline, pain doesn't need a passport. Neither does accountability. A staffer behind Abbott leans into another aide's shoulder and mutters. Staffer whispered, that wasn't an argument. That was a warning shot. The governor straightens his lapel, doesn't look back, and walks to the car waiting by the curb. Karoline doesn't turn either. She walks toward the crowd of reporters now surging forward. Reporter 1, Karoline, was that planned? Karoline, no, but I came to speak truth. Sometimes, it walks right toward you. Reporter 2, do you think the governor's avoiding real debate? She pauses, choosing her words. Karoline, I think sometimes power hides behind process, but the people, they're done hiding. The footage airs within the hour. One commentator calls it a conversation that cut through the nation's noise. By morning, a Gallup instant poll shows 62% of respondents nationwide side with Karoline's position that truth is not confined by geography. Inside the Capitol, lawmakers begin whispering what they wouldn't say yesterday. Out loud. The light window opens with a countdown clock ticking from 10. A gray backdrop. No music, just a scrolling banner across the top. Texas speaks. A digital town hall with Karoline Leavitt. The viewer count climbs fast. 12K, 19K, 31K, 42KB. For the screen even shifts, Karoline appears. No podium, no flag backdrop, just her, seated in a plain chair with a worn leather journal in her lap and a laptop open beside her. Karoline, good evening. Thank you for joining tonight's digital town hall. I'm not from Texas, you already know that, but what I've learned in the past week is that the line that matters most isn't between states, it's between silence and truth. She breathes in quietly, hands folded in her lap. Karoline, tonight you won't hear from me much, because this isn't about my voice. It's about yours. She clicks a key. The screen splits. On one side, Karoline. On the other, a row of Texans logging in, one by one. A mother with gray streaks in her hair. A high school student wearing a worn Houston Rockets hoodie. A man in a wheelchair with military patches behind him. A teacher holding a coffee mug with chipped paint. A truck driver. A nurse. Karoline looks at them each, then nods once. Karoline, when the governor told me to stay out of Texas, I listened to the letters. I read the emails. I returned the calls, and I realized you weren't asking me to speak louder. You were asking someone to finally listen. She gestures to the first speaker, a woman in her late 50s. Karoline, Evelyn, thank you for being here. Evelyn softly, I'm a mother of 3. My youngest is autistic. I've sent letters to the governor's office every year since 2018. Never got one back. Karoline, would you share what those letters said? Evelyn, they said I need help, that I can't do it alone, that Medicaid doesn't stretch far enough when your son screams at walls and there's no behavioral therapist within 50 miles. Karoline, and how did it feel when the governor said I shouldn't be speaking here? Evelyn, like he didn't just silence you, he silenced me too. Karoline doesn't speak. She lets the silence settle. It says more than anything could. The camera switches. Now it's the student's turn. Karoline Jalen from Houston. You emailed me 2 days ago, said you were nervous to speak tonight. Jalen clearing throat. I still am. Karoline, that's okay. The bravest words are the ones you say while scared. Jalen shifts forward. His voice cracks, then steadies. Jalen, they say you don't belong here, but I think we've been waiting for someone like you. Someone who says what's been stuck in our throats. Karoline, what's been stuck? Jalen. He looks up. Jaylen. That I'm tired of cafeteria fights being our only news. That no one talks about how our history books still call slavery a labor system. That I had to teach myself about Juneteenth on YouTube. Karoline quietly, and what do you want? Jalen, to stop being invisible. The chat explodes. Jalen, you matter? Preach, young man. Truth has no zip code. The screen shifts again. Now it's a man in a Marine Corps cap. Karoline, Sergeant Lewis, thank you for your service. What would you like to share tonight? He doesn't waste time. Sergeant Lewis. My son died in 2017 from an overdose. After the VA left him waiting for 13 months to be seen. Karoline, I'm sorry, Sergeant Lewis. Don't be angry. He points at the camera. Sergeant Lewis, I served this country. Then I buried my boy. And when I wrote about it, all I got was a fundraising email from the governor's re-election team. Karoline, and when I read your email on air last week, how did that feel? His eyes, well, Sergeant Lewis, like someone finally saluted him back. The chat is now up to 142,000 viewers. Karoline, every voice here tonight was told to be quiet, indirectly or otherwise. Tonight, we undo that. She turns to the teacher next. Karoline, Miss Herrera, El Paso. You said your school has been without a working AC unit for 3 years. Miss Herrera, tired but firm. Yes, we teach 8th grade science in 97 degrees. But every time I raise it at the district level, they tell me to be patient. We've been patient and ignored. Karoline, what made you write to me? Ms. Herrera, I was desperate, and your name popped up on my feed. You weren't supposed to be in Texas, but you were listening more than those who live here. Karoline doesn't speak. She just types something quickly, her team logging. Each issue live. Then a final voice appears. A mother in her late 30s. Her daughter sits next to her holding a cardboard sign, hand-drawn in red marker. Truth has no state line. Karoline, I see your daughter. What's her name? Mother, Amira. She's 10. Karoline smiling. Hi Amira. Amira's small voice. Hi, Karoline. What would you like to share with us tonight? The mother's voice shakes. Mother, I moved here 6 years ago from Mississippi. I thought Texas would be better, but Amira's school has no gifted program. I emailed everyone from the school board to the governor's office. Nothing. Then I saw you speak. And for the first time, I thought maybe I'm not crazy. Maybe I'm just unheard. Karoline leans forward. Karoline, you're not unheard anymore. The mother smiles, tears in her eyes. Mother, thank you. The chat is now moving too fast to read. Viewers post clips in real time. Twitter floods with hashtags. Hashtag Karoline Town Hall. Hashtag Truth No State Line. Hashtag Let Texas Speak Back in the governor's office. Abbott's staff watches the stream in silence. Aide, she didn't grandstand. She let them speak. Another aide mutters. We called that a stunt. Communications director grimly. That wasn't a stunt. That was a fire alarm. Governor Abbott, in another room, releases a brief statement minutes later. Tonight's online town hall was a distraction. Real policy happens through legislative action, not live streams. The press doesn't buy it. A clip from Jalen. Moment on the stream reaches 2 million views within 4 hours. The quote. I'm tired of being invisible. CNN airs the town hall in segments. MSNBC plays it in full. Even Fox News runs the sign. Truth has no state line and admits whether you agree with her or not. Karoline Leavitt, let Texas talk tonight. If that exchange moved you, comment the word truth below and let your voice join. The ones breaking silence. The buzz in the rotunda is different today. The crowd isn't loud. It's tense, not reporters scrambling for quotes. Not aides typing notes mid-step. It's something quieter and heavier. The kind of hush that means something irreversible is about to begin. On the marble floor of the Capitol chamber, name placards are being adjusted. One new name slips into a docket where none belonged a week ago. the Freedom of Speech Across State Lines Act. Unofficial title, Karoline's Clause. The Speaker gavels in. Speaker, the House is now in session. We will proceed to open discussion on Resolution 1084, the Freedom of Speech Across State Lines Act, introduced by Representatives Mendoza, Blythe, and Darnell. The camera pans across the floor. Karoline Leavitt sits at the edge of the chamber, back straight, arms folded in her lap. She's not holding papers. She's not reviewing notes. She's just present in, moving, unreadable. The first to rise is Congressman Mendoza, Democrat, Texas. Mendoza, Mr. Speaker, I rise not just for myself, but for the voices that were silenced before they were ever heard. I rise today not to endorse every word spoken by Karoline Leavitt, but to defend her right to say it. He glances toward Karoline. Mendoza continued, you don't have to agree with her, but you'd better hear her, because the minute we make state lines the boundaries of truth, we've lost the republic we claim to represent. There's a murmur in the chamber. Across the aisle, Congresswoman Blythe, Republican, South Dakota, stands next. Blythe, I come from a red state. I've been in rooms where people roll their eyes the second a woman raises hers. What I saw last week wasn't a stunt, it was a shift. And what this bill does simply is make sure that no elected official can use geographic borders to dodge accountability. A congressman from Alabama shuffles his papers and leans to his neighbor. Congressman whispers, did she just say what I think she said? Neighbor, she did. More voices follow. Congressman Darnell, independent from Vermont. Darnell, state rights matter, but they should never be weaponized to silence federal truths. Karoline's clause doesn't erase lines. It amplifies voices. Across them, back on the floor, an older congressman rises clearly agitated. Congressman Wilkes, Texas. This bill is a distraction. A woman from New Hampshire shows up, gets famous on live streams, and suddenly we're rewriting federal protections. He turns, locking eyes with Karoline. Wilkes, you're not from Texas, and you don't speak for us. Karoline remains seated, but Congressman Mendoza responds for her. Mendoza, she didn't claim to, she just listened when no one else did. The chamber falls into brief silence. Then another voice breaks it. Congresswoman Allen, Georgia. My district borders Alabama. I've had constituents move across state lines just to find safer schools for their kids. You think their pain changes because they crossed a river? She shakes her head. Allen continued. This isn't about where someone is from Mitzpah. It's about who finally gave them a mic. A CNN commentator watching from the balcony turns to their colleague. Commentator whispers. This debate isn't just about Karoline. It's about the shift she triggered. Other commentator. Yeah. And notice who's not here. The camera pans to the one empty seat in the gallery marked for Governor Abbott. Unoccupied. Absent. Unexplained. Aid. Chatter confirms it. The governor canceled his trip to Washington at the last minute. No reason given. That absence now speaks louder than any speech could have. On the House floor, Karoline still hasn't spoken, but her name has never stopped echoing. The speaker gavels again. Speaker. The floor now recognizes any final remarks. Before procedural vote, Congressman Patel from Illinois rises slowly. His voice is calm, almost too calm. Patel, I'll be honest, I didn't like how Karoline came in. It felt performative, but then I watched that town hall. I saw people speak who hadn't in years, and that made me ask myself, what have I built here if it takes an outsider to open our doors? He turns to Karoline. Patel, so, I changed my mind and I'm voting yes. The speaker nods. One final chance to speak. One opportunity to close the conversation. Karoline stands. All eyes turn. Notebooks pause. Fingers freeze over keyboard keys. But she doesn't approach the mic. She just stands. Meets every eye she can and nods once. Silent. Deliberate. Heavy. She sits again. The speaker calls the vote. Speaker. All in favor. A's hands. One row. Then another. Then another. Speaker. All opposed. Fewer hands. Slower. Shrinking. The result flashes across the ticker. House passes Karoline's clause. 278 to 157. Applause doesn't break out, but something even stronger does. Stillness. Respectful. Resolute. Sobering. Outside the chamber, reporters fled the press steps. Reporter 1. Ms. Leavitt, do you feel vindicated? Karoline evenly. This was never about being right. It was about being heard. Reporter 2. What would you say to Governor Abbott, who chose not to attend today? She looks toward the Capitol dome. Karoline, silence is a decision, and today, it made mine easier. Reporter 3. Will you return to Texas? Karoline, I never left it in the ways that matter. Inside the building, aides replay footage. In one moment, a congressman mutters to his assistant. Congressman Lowe, she never raised her voice. Assistant, she didn't have to. The classroom hums with morning stillness. Rows of juniors scribbling notes as the overhead projector glows softly against the dry erase board. At the front, Ms. Vaughn, a civics teacher in Dallas, opens the day's lesson plan. The title reads, Modern Political Discourse. Case Study, Karoline Leavitt. She clicks once. A video clip plays silently in the background. Karoline, nodding inside the House chamber as the vote passes. The volume is off, but the weight is still there. Ms. Vaughn turns to her students. Ms. Vaughn, today we're talking about speech, who controls it, who resists it, and how that changes history. Anyone remember what Karoline Leavitt said during the press briefing after the vote? One student raises a hand. It's Jaime, seated near the window. Jaime, she said, silence is a decision. Ms. Vaughn, that's right. What do you mean by that? A pause. Then another student, Tasha, speaks without being called on. Tasha, she meant Abbott's. Silence wasn't neutral. It was an answer, just not the one he thought. Nods ripple through the classroom. Ms. Vaughn steps forward and reads aloud from a page an excerpt from the officially adopted state curriculum. Ms. Vaughn reading, she said, truth doesn't need permission to cross state lines. A voice, almost inaudible, comes from the back. Student quietly, neither do we. Heads turn. Ms. Vaughn just smiles and lets the silence rest there just long enough to let it land. Later that afternoon, a camera fades in on a small studio in D.C. Karoline sits across from a young journalist for an anniversary segment. Teleprompters, no handlers, just a chair, a mic, and her weathered leather journal now closed on the table. Interviewer, it's been 1 year since the passage of what many still call Karoline's Clause. You've spoken very little since. Then, why? Karoline folds her hands. Karoline, because sometimes when your words finally land, you don't need to repeat them. Interviewer, do you think it made a difference? Karoline nods. I saw a quote once. Said revolutions rarely shout, they whisper until the echo is too loud to ignore. Interviewer, was it personal? With the governor? Karoline, no, it was political. But the moment he made it personal, when he told me to stay out of Texas, he gave the silence. A name? Interviewer, and what name was that? Karoline, fear. She pauses, not for drama but reflection. Karoline, I didn't fight to be right, I fought to be heard, and they listened. The screen fades to black for a breath. Then, a final slide appears. Legacy isn't always loud. Sometimes, it's the silence that changes everything. Was this one of the most powerful moments you've seen in political debates? Drop your thoughts in the comments and subscribe if you believe truth still matters in power.